Let's start with the concluding part of Structure of Atom chapter from Chemistry, class 11th. This is part 3. In this, we will be discussing about quantum mechanical model of an atom, just the elementary idea which is in your syllabus. So, classical mechanics, it ignores the concept of dual behavior of matter, especially the subatomic particles and the uncertainty principle, that is Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So this dual behavior was taken into account by quantum mechanics. So later quantum mechanics came after classical mechanics. It deals with the study of microscopic particles and applied for macroscopic particles for which wave nature is insignificant. They have the same results as that from classical mechanics, and it was developed by Werner Heisenberg and Schrödinger in 1926. Now, features of quantum mechanical model are, the most important thing is Schrödinger's wave equation. We do not have great details about this here in your syllabus, just the idea that there is an equation. This psi is the wave equation, wave function related. You can imagine it like an equation which is related to movement of an electron, which explains the movement of an electron, and H, this is Hamiltonian operator that you use on any equation, that you apply on a given equation and find out the results related to it, like on a given particular value I can apply integration, differentiation. So they are called operators. Same way here, this is Hamiltonian operator. This is the name given to it. And when this is applied on the wave function, then it gives you the value of energy related to that wave function. So the energy of an electron in atoms is quantized, fixed value in the particular shells. These are the features of this model. And the existence of quantized electronic energy levels is a direct result of the wave-like properties. And they are allowed solutions of Schrödinger wave equation. There is no other explanation about the Schrödinger equation. You should just know Hamiltonian operator operating on the wave function, and you'll be able to calculate the energy associated with that particular wave function. It talks about the probability of finding electron at different points in an atom rather than following a fixed circular path. And an atomic orbital is the wave function for an electron in an atom. Whenever an electron is described by a wave function, we say that the electron occupies that particular orbital. It's like the particular wave function belonging to a fixed orbital. If the electron can be described by using the wave function of that particular orbital, that means the electron is occupying that orbital. Probability density, which is psi square, this is of great importance because it predicts the region around the nucleus where there is probability of finding an electron. So psi square value is used to find out the probability of an electron. Orbitals and quantum numbers. Orbitals and quantum numbers are very important topics. So let us understand them. As in the previous slide, I was telling you that orbital, the region where you have maximum probability of finding out an electron, that is called orbital. And how will you find out the probability? That is related to psi square, square of that wave function which we just discussed in the previous slide. So an orbital of small size and specific shape means there are more chances of finding out an electron in that region in a specific direction. So when we study about the shapes of different orbitals, we will understand it better. Now let's start with a very important topic, that is quantum numbers. Quantum number, each orbital is designated by main three quantum numbers. There are actually four quantum numbers. We'll talk about the fourth one later. If you have to just designate the orbital, which orbital you are talking about, then these three quantum numbers are enough. The first is principal quantum number. It has the symbol small n. The second one is azimuthal quantum number, which has the symbol small l, and it's better to write it like this, small l. And magnetic orbital quantum number has the symbol m with l in the subscript. Now let's understand the quantum numbers one by one. Principal quantum number, which is having the symbol small n, it's a positive integer. The values start from 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, and so on. The principal quantum number determines the size and to large extent the energy of the orbital. If principal quantum number is 1, then we say it is the first shell, K shell. It basically tells you the shell number. And if it is 2, it is L shell, 3 M, 4 N. So this basically is telling you the shell number, the principal quantum number. And as we have read here, that it to large extent it tells you about the energy of the orbital, because if I am moving from shell number 1, 2, 3, 4 away from the nucleus, the energy will keep on increasing. And for hydrogen atom and hydrogen-like species, I told earlier also, hydrogen-like species means those which have a single electron system. So these are the examples for hydrogen and the species which are like hydrogen. It can tell you about the energy and size of the orbital. It will depend for every example, for every species, it will depend on the value of small n, that is principal quantum number. It tells you the shell number and the number of orbitals we can also calculate. If I just take square of n, like for first shell, you have how many orbitals there? So square of 1 is 1. So in the first shell, there is only 1 orbital. In the second shell, there are 4 orbitals. In the third shell, there are 9 orbitals. So when we complete the quantum numbers discussion, we will understand that how we are getting this 1, 4, 9 and so on. The next is azimuthal quantum number, that is having the symbol small l. This is also known as orbital angular momentum or subsidiary quantum number. It defines the 3D shape of the orbital. Azimuthal quantum number tells us about the shape of the orbital, and for a given value of n, the values of L can range from 0 to n minus 1. Like if I have the value of n1, I'm talking about first shell. So if n is 1, L would be 0 to n minus 1, that is 0 only. If n is 2, second shell, then value of L would be 0 to n minus 1, that is 0 and 1, two values of L. And when each shell we are considering, it consists of one or more subshells or sub-levels, which we are calling, they are interchangeably used with orbitals also. So the number of subshells in a particular shell, principal shell, is equal to the value of n. Like if n is 1, there is only one value of L, so there is only one subshell. Number of values, how many values are there, they tell you how many subshells are there. If n is 2, then the values, possible values of L are 2, 0 and 1. So there are two subshells. It's like that. Subshell corresponding to different values of L, they are given here in the table. The value of n is 1, so subshell can be only, the value of n, L can be only 0 if n is 1. So there is only one subshell. If the value of L is 0, the subshell is S. If it is 1, the subshell is P. If the value of L is 2, the subshell is called D. It's like that, FGH also, according to the increasing values of L. So let's go back to the table. If n is 1, L can be 0 only. So If L is 0, it has to be S subshell. So here we have written 1S is possible. This is the notation of the subshell. If N is 2, there can be two possible values. So if L is 0, it is S orbital, S subshell. If L is 1, it is P in general. So how do we designate? We write 2S and 2P. If N is 3, there may be three possibilities of values of L because it is starting from 0 and ending at N minus 1. So I have three possible values 0, 1, 2. If it is 0, it is S orbital. If it is 1, it is P. If it is 2, it is D, as you can see here. So it becomes 3S, the designation of orbital, 3P and 3D. Same way, if I take N4, then the four values are given here. So it will go till F. So you will notice that 3F is not possible. F comes for the first time in 4. Reason? Because for F, the value of L should be 3 and value of L can be 3 only if N is more than 3. So from 4 it starts. Now magnetic orbital quantum number, the next quantum number, it gives information about the spatial arrangement of the orbit. Spatial arrangement means the arrangement of orbitals in space. What is their shape? How are they oriented in the space? If I show them in 3 dimensions, how the arrangement is, that is called spatial orientation. And we choose a standard set of coordinate axes, x, y, and z. All the three are at 90 degree to each other. So that is the standard set of coordinate axes that we are referring to here. For any subshell defined by L value, for any subshell, total 2s plus 2L plus 1 values of ML, that is the magnetic quantum number, are possible. Let us see how. How can we say that? If value of L is 0, then if I put 0 here in place of L, I will get 1. That means if L is 0, only one value of magnetic quantum number is possible, and that is from minus L. The range is from minus L through 0 till plus L. So 0 is 0, so there will be only one value possible, 0. If the value of L is 1 in any particular case that we are considering, the magnetic quantum number values would be minus 1 because it starts from minus n. Then you have next value 0 and then you have next value plus 1. Three values are possible. If I put L1 here in 2L plus 1, 2L plus 1, 2 into 1 plus 1 would be 3. So I am getting 3 values. Now the following chart gives the relationship between the subshell and the number of orbitals associated. If you have the value of L as 0, there is only s orbital possible, so number of orbitals 1. If you have L as 1, then it is p subshell, then 3. As you can see here, I have told you that these three values are possible. So each value corresponds to one orbital of that subshell. So here in P you have 3, and if L is equal to 2, it will be D subshell, and there will be 5 possible values because then I'll write from minus 2 to plus 2. So there will be total 5 values, so 5 orbitals are possible. Now the last quantum number, the three quantum numbers that we use, they are enough to give the designation or notation of an orbital, but later it was found by two scientists that there is presence of a fourth quantum number also, and that is called spin quantum number, because electron is not just taking a round of the nucleus, it is spinning while taking that round, like Earth moves around the sun while spinning. So an electron spins around its own axis as Earth spins around its own axis while revolving around the sun. So in other words, an electron has charge and mass, intrinsic spin angular momentum, and which is related to angular spin angular quantum number, and spin angular momentum of electron, which is a vector quantity, because the spin can be, when the electron is spinning, it can be clockwise spinning like this, or it can be spinning anti-clockwise like this. So in both the cases you are talking about the direction, so they are calling it a vector quantity. It can have two orientations relative to the chosen axis. So if it is clockwise, if we imagine it is moving clockwise, we'll give it the value of plus half. And if it is anti-clockwise, then the spin quantum number is given the value of minus half. And in a particular orbital, like we said that in P there are three orbitals possible, because the values of magnetic quantum numbers were coming out to be -1, 0 and +1. So these orbitals we show like this together at the same level, and I'll divide it into three boxes. So each box is representing one orbital. So I'm talking about P, where three orbitals are to be shown. So if I'm showing one electron a spin up in P, that is plus half. We generally write plus half for this. And if we are showing the spin downwards, we write minus half spin for this. So these values are used to represent that how you are showing the electrons in a particular orbital. And if there are two electrons present together, then they should have opposite spins, anti-parallel. Otherwise, if they are spinning in the same direction in the same orbital, the repulsions will be more and it does not lead to stability. So this is a way of explaining that how two electrons can be shown in a single orbital. They have to be with opposite spins so that the repulsions are minimized. Now this is just a quick recap, just to sum up the four quantum numbers. First is principal quantum number, small n. It tells you about the size of the orbital and it tells you about the energy of the orbital also. And after n there is L, azimuthal quantum number, small l. It tells you about the particular orbital, s orbital, p orbital, d orbital, which orbital we are talking about. And the next is magnetic quantum number. It tells you about the orientation of the orbital. So for a given value of L, ML can be total values 2L plus 1, and same as the number of orbitals per subshell, as I explained in the previous slides. And the last is spin quantum number, which refers to the orientation of the spin of the electron, that whether the electron is moving clockwise or anti-clockwise. Now the shapes of the orbitals, as I told you, the orbital's wave function, that is psi we call it, for an electron has no physical meaning. If you look at these graphs, then they are just telling you that this kind of graph would be obtained if you plot psi against the radius, that is the distance when you move away from the nucleus. If the 0 is considered the nucleus of an atom, so I'm moving away from it, this is the distance increasing in this direction from the nucleus. So this kind of graph would be obtained for 1s orbital, and this kind of graph would be obtained for 2s orbital. But it is not telling us much. What is more important for us is psi square, because it is directly telling us about the electron density, the probability of finding an electron. So if I read this for 1s, I am here near 0. This is the nucleus of the atom. So here you will see the graph is not touching this line, y-axis. That means there is zero probability of finding the electron. Obviously there cannot be any electron in the nucleus or just very near to nucleus. So if I move slightly away from it, I'm moving this way, and then it is increasing the probability of finding the electron. So this is the maximum probability. That means this is 1s. At this particular distance, if you put a straight line here and find out what is the value in nanometers here, this will tell you that 1s is present at this particular distance in nanometers from the nucleus, and after that the graph is touching this x-axis. That means there is zero probability of finding the electron now, because 1s orbital has to occupy a limited space, and after that a place comes where there is no probability of finding the electron, and then again it picks up, it moves. When you move away from the nucleus, again the probability will keep on increasing, that means 2s is coming. Again, it will go down, then 2p will come. It's like that. So psi square versus radius, the distance from the nucleus in nanometers as shown here. If you draw it, if you get this graph for interpretation, this will make you understand that why this 1s or 2s, if they are drawn like this in terms of just psi, they are not of much help. But yes, this probability density will tell us that how it is related to the probability of finding out the electron if the value of psi square is given. Orbitals, on the basis of this value of psi square, probability density, these probability density plots of 1s and 2s have been drawn, and same way for the other orbitals also they have been drawn. So if I move away from the nucleus, if here is the nucleus and I start moving away, the probability of finding an electron is increasing, and then it suddenly starts decreasing and it vanishes. So after this line, there is no probability of finding the electron in 1s. So they have made that because it was in all the directions giving you same probability up to a certain radius. So you have to just follow this circle, this boundary properly. So this is the shape, spherical. Same way for 2s. S orbitals have spherical shape. So this is the probability density plot, this plot. And then it leads to the proper boundary surface diagrams, we call them. So they have spherical shape. Same way it was drawn for p orbitals. There are 3p orbitals, 2px, 2py and 2pz. These are the 3 orbitals. So the 2px would be on x-axis only, the 2 lobes. Now how these lobes are obtained? They must have started from the nucleus and they observe that the psi square value is increasing like this, and both the ways from here, and then it decreases. So this is one lobe. Then they went to opposite direction to see how it is varying here. So it is again up to the same distance varying. So you have 2 lobes of the dumbbell. That's why they are called dumbbell shaped orbitals. And these are the orbitals, d orbitals. We have 5 d orbitals. 5d orbitals. Why? Because if I'm talking about d orbital, that means the values of magnetic quantum numbers would be 5, -2 to +2. So you have 5d orbitals. They are dxy. You will see that these lobes, they are coming between, they are coming in x and y planes. They are not on the axis. And dxz, it is coming in the xz plane. These 4 lobes, they are not coming on the y. And then you have the yz. Same way, these are the 3. The remaining 2 are the x square, y square. Here, these lobes are exactly on x and y axis, both the dumbbells. And the z square would be exactly on z axis, both the dumbbells, lobes of this dumbbell. So these are the boundary surface diagrams of the 5 3D orbitals. And orbitals are the place where there is maximum probability of finding out an electron, but there are certain places in the atom where there is zero probability of finding out an electron, and these places are called nodal surfaces, or they are simply called nodes. What are nodes? Where there is zero probability of finding out an electron. So nodes are of 2 types, angular as well as radial. In general, the ns orbital has n minus 1 nodes. This is how you calculate the total number of nodes, n minus 1. If there is 4th shell, n would be 4. So 4 minus 1, 3. Total 3 nodes would be there. And the number of nodes increase with the increase in principal quantum number, because it is just 1 less of the principal quantum number. And the number of nodes for 2s orbital is 1, 2 minus 1. And it is for 3s orbital, it is 2, so on. And number of angular nodes, if you talk about, angular nodes are given by azimuthal quantum number L. Whatever is the value of L, same will be the number of angular nodes. Let us say if I am talking about 2s, if it is s, L would be 0. If L is 0, the angular node would also be 0. Why? Because the s orbital is spherical. So we cannot imagine angular node there. And same way, if you move to p orbital, in p orbital, the value of L is 1. So there can be one angular node because these p orbitals are at an angle. These dumbbells are placed at an angle from each other. So if something is in px, the same electron cannot be in py. So at a particular angle, py, px and pz are the three orbitals where there is probability of finding out an electron. But between them, between these axes, the whole plane is there, and you can draw so many different angles of that axis with the different lines in that particular plane. So in those planes there is no probability of finding out the electron if you're talking about a specific p orbital. So they are called angular nodes, and the total number of nodes, as I told you, they are given by n minus 1, and the sum of angular nodes, which is given by azimuthal quantum number L, and radial nodes, which is given by n minus L minus 1. This is azimuthal quantum number L. If you add n minus L minus 1 and L, it gives you n minus 1. So this is the total number of nodes. Energy of orbitals. Energy of orbitals, as we have discussed, depends on the principal quantum number, that is n. More is the value of n, more will be the energy. Why? Because if I am increasing the value of n, I am moving away from the nucleus. So the hold of nucleus on electrons decreases with the increase in n. And orbitals having same energy, they are called degenerate orbitals. Like if we take three orbitals px, py, pz, they belong to same subshell, so they will have exactly same energy. That's how we call them degenerate. Now the highest filled energy orbital is in an element is known as the ground state. What does it mean? Suppose I take the simplest example of hydrogen. In hydrogen, there is only one orbital possible. There is only one shell, first shell, in which electron is there, and there is only one orbital in it, as we have seen from the quantum numbers 1s. So if the electron is present in this particular orbital, this is the ground state, and if the electron is jumping higher after taking energy from the surroundings, that will be excited state. Lower the value of n plus L for an orbital. This is n plus L rule, the next point. Lower the value of n plus L, where n is principal quantum number and L is azimuthal quantum number, the lower is its energy. Because we have to write the electronic configuration of elements now, and there we need to follow the increasing order of their orbitals. So this point is very important. If n plus L value is lower, the energy is lower, and if the n plus L value is higher, the energy would be higher. But in some cases, what happens, the value of n plus L is exactly same. Like let us take the example of 3D. And we are taking the example along with this 3D for S. So if you find out the n plus L value for 3D, n is 3 and L is 1. So the value becomes 4. 3 plus 1. And for 4s, it is 4 plus 0. Again, it is 1. In such cases, the orbital with lower value of principal quantum number will have lower energy. So this is the order of the energy. 4s will be having higher energy than 3d. The net positive charge experienced by the outer electrons is known as effective nuclear charge. Z effective we call it. That is, if the nucleus of an atom is in not very far, I should say, from the electron. If the electron is in the first shell and the nucleus is right there, there are no other electrons between them. So this electron will be experiencing a lot of attraction from the nucleus. So its effective nuclear charge is quite high. But if the first shell is filled, two electrons are moving, and in the second shell, I have one more electron. Now this electron will experience lesser effective nuclear charge. Why? Because this electron and the nucleus, they have two electrons moving between them. So this is acting as a shield, as a screen. This we call shielding effect or screening effect. So this is a hindrance between the positively charged nucleus and the outer electron. As the number of shells keep on increasing, the distance between nucleus and the valence electron keeps on increasing. Hence the attraction starts decreasing, and that attraction will depend again that how effective the shield or screens are which are between outermost electron and the nucleus. If the shielding effect is not very good, shielding effect of spherical orbitals is very good, which are s orbital, but the shielding effect of d and f orbitals and p orbitals is not that good because they are not surrounding the nucleus equally in from all the sides in all the directions like a sphere does. So the shielding is not that good. In that case, if there are more of d and f electrons involved, the outermost electron faces more attraction towards the nucleus because the hindrance between the outermost electron and nucleus is lesser. Shielding of those electrons, those orbitals is poor. So Z effective is decided like that. Now energies of orbitals in same subshell decreases with the increase in atomic number. What does it mean? Suppose I talk about the 4s subshell or the 4s subshell of an atom which has lesser atomic number as compared to the other which has more atomic number, but that also has 4s in it. When you start writing the configuration, 4s will come there also. So if the same subshell we are considering, its energy will decrease with the increase in atomic number because Z effective will play a very important role there. If the atomic number is increasing, more of D and F electrons would also be involved. And if those electrons are involved there, then their shielding is poor. So the attraction between the nucleus and outermost electron, like in 4s here, I am talking about the electron which is in 4s, they will face more attraction towards the nucleus as compared to the electrons in 4s which are present in an atom with lesser atomic number because the shielding plays a very, very important role. So same subshell will not be facing same effective nuclear charge in every atom. It depends upon the atomic number. Now here is an important concept that how to fill the orbitals in an atom, how to fill the electrons in different orbitals in an atom. For that we need to follow a particular order, and that is coming from Aufbau principle, a very important principle which tells us the increasing order of these energies of these orbitals because we have to fill the electrons in the increasing order. So the order of energy increases like this as I am showing here. And how do we get it? Aufbau means building up. So we are building up this particular arrangement, this order. Let us see how. So this particular figure is to help you to remember this. You have to write 1s to 7s like this. Then 2p because 1p is not possible according to quantum numbers. So start with 2p. Start with 3d because 2d is not possible. So once you write them, then you draw these parallel lines. These parallel lines, slanting lines through these orbitals which we have arranged. And the most important part comes now. When we join them, we have to be very, very careful. We can do a mistake here. You don't have to join 1s like this. You don't have to come from here. You have to go between these parallel lines. From here, you have to go this way and then you come back here. Then from 2s again you go this way. So these dotted lines are to be drawn between the proper lines and then join them this way. Alternate upwards, downwards, upwards, downwards, and then you can follow the simple order. That would be 1s. If I follow the line like this, 2s, then I'm coming here, 2p, 3s, then 3p, 4s, and this is the order that you are getting. Now, the mistake I was telling you, if I go like this, 1s, then 2s, and I'm ignoring the dotted line, then I'm going like this, 2p and 3s. Till here it is okay. Once I reach here, it becomes 4s and 3p. Then it becomes 3d and 4p, so everything will go wrong. So be very careful when you are making it, and this will help you to learn the order. Then there are two more important things here. One is Pauli's exclusion principle. Exclusion means something exclusive about a particular entity that we are discussing here. It says that only two electrons may exist in the same orbital, and these electrons must have anti-parallel or opposite spin. I told you earlier also that if I have to show in a particular orbital, which we show like this. So if one electron is having upward spin, the other has to have downward spin, plus half and minus half. Only two electrons may exist in the same orbital like this, and they should have opposite spin. Otherwise, if they have same spin upwards or downwards, they will repel each other more and stability would not be there. So this is the Pauli's exclusion principle statement. And there is Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. It says that if you are filling the electrons in degenerate orbitals, it is talking about that, then you have to be careful that all the degenerate orbitals are getting one electron each. Like if I show you three p orbitals here, 1, 2 and 3, and suppose I have p4, I have to fill 4 electrons here, and I start like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Suppose I fill it like this. Now I read the statement. Pairing of electrons in the orbital belonging to same subshell, P, D or F, does not take place until each orbital belonging to that subshell has got one electron that is singly occupied. So that means I need to give an electron here also. I cannot start pairing like this. So what would be the proper way of writing this, filling the orbitals? The proper way would be, I have to show it this way. I'll again make it. Now, according to rule, I have to first fill the orbitals belonging to same subshell singly. I have to give all of them one electron if it is available, and then if any electron is left, one is still left, then I will start pairing. So this is the proper correct arrangement. I cannot leave one orbital blank and pair the electrons in the other two orbitals. That would be wrong. So this is Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. Maximum multiplicity means the orbitals which are having the electrons to start with, they should have all the electrons in the same spin. They should be singly occupied first. That is maximum multiplicity. Because if I show the three electrons like this, first upwards, then second, then third, then total will be 3 into plus half. This will be the total spin. That is maximum multiplicity. And then you start pairing them up. Electronic configuration, the last part. Here you have, suppose I have to write the configuration for lithium. Lithium has total electrons 3. These are the atomic numbers 3, 4, 5 and so on. So if I have the arrangement that it has to be 1s, then 2s, then 2p, then 3s, I can simply write the configuration in the boxes as orbitals, 2 electrons here and the 1 remaining here. Or I can simply write it this way. If orbital diagram is not required, electronic configuration can be written like this: 1s orbital, then 2 electrons in the superscript, 2s orbital, then 1 electron in the superscript. I had 3 electrons, I have filled them. Let's go to sodium, that is having 11 electrons. So 1s2, 2s2, and then 2p can have 6 electrons. There are 3 orbitals in it. So 10 electrons are filled till here. 1 is left, that will go in 3s. So this is how we write the electronic configuration. And this is another table which is giving you electronic configuration starting with hydrogen. 1s2 for helium, 1s1 for hydrogen. Same way lithium. So you have to keep increasing one electron, keep increasing these orbitals in the order of increasing energy where they are coming. And this is how you write the configuration. You will notice that for potassium, they have written this in the square bracket, argon, and then 4s1. Because if you notice the configuration of argon, that is still 3p6, still here. And in potassium also, you have exactly the same configuration till here. So in place of this, I can write AR in the square bracket, but that is not mandatory. That is just a way of writing the configuration. So you can write this way also: 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6 and 4s1. Or you can simply write till 3p6. If you don't want to write such big arrangement, you can simply write argon in the square bracket and then the remaining electron in 4s1. At two places you would notice something unusual, that is chromium, atomic number 24, and you have copper, atomic number 29. According to configuration that it should follow, it should be 4s2 here and 3d, 4. But the naturally found configuration is 4s1 and 3d5. Same way, in case of copper, it should have been 4s2 because S is to be filled first, and then you have 3d9. But here it is 4s1 and 3d10. Why? Because 3d5 and 3d10 are very stable configurations. I'm talking about chromium 3d5 here and 3d10 here. They are very stable because they are fully filled and half filled orbitals. This is extra information, but still very useful information. That why do we say that half filled and fully filled orbitals are extra stable? Because one thing is they have symmetry in them. Anything which is having symmetry in it, you can see around yourself in nature. Everything which is symmetrical has extra stability. So that is one aspect, that when you distribute electrons in the same subshell having equal energy but different spatial distribution, you have to look for symmetry. So that's why you distribute electrons equally first. And then there is something called exchange energy. Exchange energy means if these are the degenerate orbitals. So one electron which is here, it has chances that it can, jump, or it can move to other orbitals of the same subshell because their energy is exactly same. But whenever this movement will take place, there will be some loss of energy, slight loss of energy, and it will decrease the total energy of that particular subshell. So exchange energy we call it. More is the energy released in this process, more will be the stability, because electrons with more energy are less stable. They will not be confined in a particular orbital. They will try to go out of that. And those which have less energy, they are more confined to a particular space, a particular orbital in an atom. So that gives the stability. So these two factors are there which are present in the half filled and fully filled orbital. So they give it extra stability. So that completes our chapter structure of atom. And you must do the exercise questions and solved examples and in-text questions to understand it completely. I hope it will help you. All the best. Thank you.